from Abuja.
Hello, we are glad you're part of our show. We appreciate you. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and this is Magnus Kpakol GVA. As always, it's all about how we can raise the level of living. That's what it's all about. In view today, the Nigerian economy. We continue with our discussion on what happened. Until recently, the Nigerian economy was one of the fastest growing in the world and looked on course to join in the ranks of the top 20 largest economies in the world. Now people are describing it as an economy divided. What happened? We continue our discussion from last time with Professor Ode Ojogu, Pro-Chancellor of Benue State University and former Chief Economic Advisor to the President of Nigeria. But before that, in our hidden economics, this goes without lights. Now up next in our quick view, we rank the poorest countries in the world. That's coming right up. The Human Development Index, HDI, is a composite statistic of life expectancy, education, and income per capita indicators. A country scores a higher HDI when the life expectancy at birth is longer, the education period is longer, and the income per capita is higher. Although the HDI is mostly used to classify countries in terms of level of development, it is a good way to rank countries when trying to measure multidimensional poverty. In this connection, which of the following non-African countries is among the 20 poorest countries in the world? Haiti, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Which of the following African countries is not among the 20 poorest countries in the world? Ethiopia, Mali, Liberia, and Togo. Stay with us for our answers coming up shortly. Still in view, the Nigerian economy. What happened? But up next in our hidden economics, this goes without lights. As it has become known, the disco ball was used as early as 1897. Indeed, it is recorded that an 1897 article of Electrical Worker discusses the third annual ball held on January 6, 1897 in Charlestown, a neighborhood of Boston. The spectacular lighting display could be seen for miles around Boston. This was probably the first dance hall mirror ball with lights on display. Now, disco music gained popularity during the mid-1970s to the early 1980s. It is a genre of dance music containing elements of funk, soul, pop, and salsa. Its early start is associated with the city of Philadelphia, starting among a type of counter subculture that included elements from the African American, Italian American, Latino, and even the gay and psychedelic communities. The disco may have been a type of reaction against rock music. Now, every disco was associated with lights. Indeed, without the ball and lights, it was not a disco. Now, some kind of discos started in Nigeria in late 2013. Most people wondered whether the disco ball and disco music had made a comeback. But it turns out this type of disco was short for distribution company. With the privatization of the Power Holding Company of Nigeria, PHCN, the discos were to come with light because they are the electricity distribution companies, and the Nigerian Electricity and Regulatory Commission is their regulator. However, these discos don't seem to have much light. So are they discos without light? Every disco I ever heard of before had lights. Okay, I know, there are chief culprits called the government, the transmission company of Nigeria, and then of course that GenCos, that is the generation companies. The government is to come up with the right policies for adequate generation, transmission, and distribution. So at the end of the totem pole are the hapless distribution companies, the discos. So what it all means is that if you don't have very good policies, your generation and transmission of electricity will be poor, and the discos will have no light to distribute. And so the people will be dealing with discos without lights. Our hidden economics for you. Before we start our discussion, here are our quick view answers. The non-African country among the 20 poorest countries in the world using the Human Development Index is Afghanistan at number 18. Using the Human Development Index, the African country listed here, not among the 20 poorest countries in the world, is Togo at number 27. For comments, adverts, and sponsorship, please see our information displayed on the screen. As I said last time, the weakness in global oil prices has apparently knocked the Nigerian economy down, as real GDP growth has turned negative for the first time in many years, down about 0.4%. Policy must now get it right, and quickly, to avoid a prolonged economic decline. A prolonged decline will hurt jobs and personal income, and thereby worsen the nation's poverty situation. All that said, so what caused the decline? Indeed, what happened? And what should we do? To help us discuss this, we have Professor Ode Ojowu, Pro-Chancellor of Benue State University and former Chief Economic Advisor to the President. Please join us in our continued discussion with Professor Ojowu.
I can guess that by being flexible, they intend that the interbank rates, where interbank rate will now be driven by demand and supply, while they hold onto the reserve for discretionary purpose.
What was the name of that? That's what? Is that devaluation?
Well, it's a devaluation without pronouncement.
I like that one.
Because you see, there is a whole, it makes sense though.
Yes.
Because,
I agree, yes.
Because it makes sense though. Given what we have seen
Yeah.
in the negative rate of growth,
Yeah.
an ordinary pronouncement about devaluation would have worsened the situation.
Worse. You're right.
So to pretend that we don't devalue creates its own side effects, like people are saying that people are not coming to invest, which is true, but real genuine investors don't look at the spot market exchange rate to invest. They look at the long-term policies.
Yeah, but that's what they've been afraid of, though, that they don't know if these guys are going to devalue down the road.
No. You see, the issue is not that he doesn't know if he's going to devalue. The issue is that you don't know if he's not going to devalue, what is he going to do? Because to take a position not to devalue, it's not it's a position. You have to take, if you don't want to devalue, then you must put in the kind of policies that will now prop up the value of the naira over a period of time for you to achieve your objective. But if you don't devalue, and you say you are not devaluing, and you have not yet put up a place, a policy alternative to devaluation, then everybody will think that you are going to devalue. In any case, you'll be forced to devalue.
So what is the way forward? How do we get out of this economic difficulty that we're in? What do we do?
The way forward, I think we should take the bearing from what Mr. President said at the budget speech. Okay. And that is that we want to diversify the economy once and for all. And that we will never be in a situation, I'm paraphrasing, a situation where one commodity will determine the fate of this economy. That we are going to diversify, we are going to bring in technologies, innovations that will allow our young people to grow and create employment for themselves and generate and develop the economy. That is a starting point. Economic diversification, technology, above all, attitudinal change.
Yes, yes.
If we can do these three things.
But what do you diversify into? Like what are the principles?
No, when we mean diversify,
yes,
we already have an economy that is potentially diversifying. It is the ability to tap these potentials. Agriculture is a major source. It is still run in its primitive form. The more people are in agriculture, the poorer they become. But actually, in essence,
diversified from agriculture, because now it represents only like 22% of GDP.
No.
Over 42%
not it.
That's not diversification.
No, that's not it. In fact, if you look at the structure of GDPs across the world, the larger the share of agriculture in GDP, the poorer, the more primitive.
But that is correct, yes. But that's what I'm saying, so that we have diversified from that.
No. We have not diversified.
It used to be 42, it's not 22.
No, these are relative declines.
Oh, it's declined, okay.
Yeah, it have declined.
Oh, okay.
You see, agriculture is supposed to be expanding.
Okay.
But the value addition aspect of it is supposed to be expanding faster than the primary value.
Okay.
That is what diversification means. So when you see 2% of GDP as share of GDP in the US,
yes,
but in absolute terms,
that is agriculture share of GDP
huge,
in the US, yes.
But it goes into diversification in terms of the value additional process, the value chain. That is what structural transformation is about. So agriculture should be growing in bounds of 15%, 20%. But when it does grow like that,
it's not good.
No, it's not good.
Yes.
It should grow 15%,
yes,
20%. But when it does that, there must be an uptake of that commodity in the produce that will be processed into value-added produce. But right now, the constraint to that growth is in science. If agriculture grows in terms of primary produce, you are going to lose all of it in post-harvest losses. So the technology for post-harvest loss is a major investment area that government must push in order for this diversification to continue.
You're trying to say that we are not converting it into other products. We are not processing.
We are not processing. That is one. Yeah. The level of processing of primary produce is under 10%. Yes. Normal process, modernized processing. But in the interim, we lose a lot in post-harvest losses. Perishables up to 40–60%.
Yeah, because they are not processed because it's just wasting away.
So we need to have that capacity.
Yes.
Now, in addition to processing, we must have the technology for preservation. Yes, that is very, very important. So that's diversification.
Yes.
We also have solid minerals to which to diversify.
Well, no, you're talking about diversification within the sector. That is more sophistication then. We have sectoral diversification, moving from oil to non-oil. Yes.
But within a sector, we still have a lot of diversification to take place.
Yes, you're right.
Now, when I look at the pattern of investment, we also need foreign investment. I've looked at the investment flows into Nigeria, but you will see that foreign direct investment goes almost into what I call food is ready business. Oil sector, okay, where you can get your money. So the areas that the federal government has identified as priority areas do not receive priority attention of foreign investors.
Okay.
So we need federal government to sit with people to ensure that the priority areas also become priority areas of investors. Otherwise, we're not going to have enough resources from within.
So what's the role of the states in this whole arrangement?
I've argued several times that the focus on the federal government is excessive.
Okay.
If you look at the report of the Monetary Policy Committee, it talks about the federal government budget as the only stimulus to the economy. But we have 36 plus 1 other budgets across the country. And unless and until the states become active in the agricultural sector, we're not going to achieve much. So we need the states, at least all the states that have endorsed the APC, they can develop a common template for development and ensure that these budgets are carried out.
But they have budgets. We see their budgets announced, posted. What are those budgets for? The state budgets? Because you said that there's focus on the federal budget, but the state budgets are out there.
We don't know
also.
what they are doing. Nobody focuses on them. There's time to focus on the states and see what they are doing with their monies.
Yes.
And ensure that their capital budgets actually add up to that of the federal government, so we can have a capital budget for the nation.
Yes.
The budget of the federal government, they call it national budget. That is not national budget.
You're right.
That's the budget of the federal government.
You're right.
The sum of the budgets of the local councils and states and federal government constitute the national budget. And until we're able to put this together, even our monetary policy and fiscal policy will not be effective when you focus exclusively on the federal government. So diversification, if you want me to conclude, is there are many areas already. ICT is one of them. I was looking at ICT figures, and our export of anything called ICT is near zero, and we are just consumers of ICT. And ICT is something that can be developed fairly rapidly to contribute significantly to other development of other sectors in terms of services. So ICT is one. So in other words, we need, first of all, if you want me to say it, we need to have a physical economy. We have not developed our physical economy.
I want to kind of come in there. So when you look at the total output and looking for a way out of quagmire, so are we going to spend our way domestically out of this? Are we going to export our way out of this? Are we going to invest our way out of it? Which one has primacy in terms of what we think we can do to drive the economy out of this patch where we are?
Well, you have provided the answer. It's all of the above. You know, I looked at Nigerian trade figures. Nigeria seems to have a trade deficit with every country in the world, including Benin Republic, when you take away oil. So other countries are taking more advantage of our domestic market than we are ourselves. So Nigeria's domestic market is one major source of even diversifying because we have the population. And if the population is improving in incomes, we should be able to take advantage of that. Now, so we can invest for import substitution, as well as those areas that don't have direct competition with the external sector. You know that this current crisis is actually, if we have the technology from within, it's actually a protective device for the agricultural sector, because food imports are expensive. If we're able to respond from within, we can take advantage of that. We can also, as I said, call for investment from outside. We need foreign investment. But I would rather not have too much of portfolio investment, because the impact of withdrawal has contributed significantly to this crisis. If I were in position, I would put a capital control on foreign portfolio investment and encourage.
That's another. We will have to call
that's
it for
a different point. But for now, what we need to do is to encourage Nigerians to dominate the stock exchange. because it is the size of the domestic market in terms of the investment that has mitigated the outflow of resources from the stock exchange. So domestication of that stock exchange will be
Does
critical.
the future look good? When we look way out for Nigeria?
I'm very, very hopeful about Nigeria.
Good.
If we are able to go through what we have gone through already, I think it can be worse than it is. So I believe that by the end of this year, we'll be able to achieve a zero growth rate.
Professor, I want to thank you so very much.
Thank you.
You are wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nigeria's major problem right now is mostly with uncertainty over the capacity of the government to breathe life into the economy. Unfortunately, this wait-and-see stance has continued for too long, as it has taken long to establish an economic policy direction. Unfortunately, this fiscal side delay has, in my view, hampered the ability of the CBN to act more aggressively. Any continued wait-and-see from the monetary policy side is likely for gauging the real direction of fiscal policy and is not good for helping immediate recovery. So fiscal policymakers must act quickly. We have now seen a confirmation that in the short term, Nigeria's capacity to withstand a rapid drop in oil prices is quite limited, as Nigeria's fortunes are clearly and inextricably tied to the vicissitudes of the oil industry, because Nigeria has not diversified its export base. So as I've said before, the gong has sounded, and aggressive diversification efforts must start now. Where will it start? The answer? Our communities. That's where it will start. How will it start? By the government designing policies with catalytic measures to empower our communities. We now have approaches that can produce immediate results. When I say the government, I mean federal, state, and local governments. Consider the Ogoni land situation. I commend President Muhammadu Buhari for his political will to launch the UNEP report. I commend also the excellent job the Honorable Minister of Environment is doing as the field general for the president, and for that matter, Ogoni people and the people of the Niger Delta, and of course, the entire country. But hear this, the whole exercise will be a failure if it is not supported with a serious community economic competitiveness program that involves all the stakeholders in the exercise. I am gratified that Governor Nyesom Wike also appears ready to aggressively develop Ogoni. His commissioning and immediate activity on the Sakwe-Wambori Road into Kano is highly commendable and reflects his understanding that it is mostly how the community's economy fares during and after the cleanup that matters. If all policy is aimed at how to raise the level of living, then community economic development and competitiveness is where the battle will be decisively won or even lost. The community is where the people are. It is where policy action should be anchored. I'm Magnus Kpakol, and that's my view.
Part2.